Look familiar? Texas state senators recently passed these redistricting maps, which essentially gift 5 extra congressional seats to the GOP.
Breaking news for you this Saturday morning. The Texas Senate has just approved new congressional maps.
18 ayes, 11 nays. House Bill 4 is finally passed. Please remove him from the gallery.
The state Senate passed its Republican-drawn congressional map early this morning. Now, that approved map was drawn to help Republicans win as many as 5 more House seats in next year's midterm elections. The vote was the final hurdle in the redistricting plan brought on by President Trump and Governor Greg Abbott, which has ignited a nationwide redistricting arms race. Now the new maps will head to Governor Abbott's desk to be signed into law.
Now the maps are on their way to Abbott's desk to be signed into law. This is not normal. State legislatures typically redistrict at the start of the decade. But thanks to Trump's rightful fear that Republicans will lose the majority in the 2026 midterms, because they're tanking the economy and violating human rights, they've redrawn them in 2025. This is just another example of state leaders putting their own political games over the needs of the people they're serving. They're not even trying to hide it. Passing this map and gaining 5 more GOP seats took priority over legislation to help the victims of the Texas Hill Country flood recover. All these maps will do is disenfranchise voters and further deteriorate our democratic processes. Texas was first, but because of Trump's desperate need to hang on to power, it won't be the last. With President Trump, his interests always come first and democracy always comes last.
These are the same congressional maps that the Texas House approved earlier this week. Now that both chambers have signed off on it, it will now go to Governor Greg Abbott's desk, where we know he will swiftly approve and sign into law these new congressional maps. Redistricting in Texas carries consequences both politically and for the everyday Texan. First is political power. These new maps will give way for potentially and likely 5 more Republican seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. Because our new maps now combine or swallow up other districts, we are now in a position where we have members of the same party who may have to run against each other or figure it out amongst themselves what they will run for, if not against each other. For instance, we have 2 Democrats in the Dallas area, Congresswoman Julie Johnson and Congressman Mark Vesey. If they were to put themselves on a ballot right now, they would be running for the same district. Naturally, maps drawn by Republican lawmakers are going to reinforce Republican control in the state and on the federal level. The result of this often leads to a lesser influence from minority voters, which brings me to the consequences to the everyday Texan. Critics argue that new congressional maps or redistricting often dilute the influence or the power of minority voters. This happens because these minority voters are either squished into one district or sprinkled across many. Now, here's what comes next. Oftentimes redistricting, new congressional maps, they are met with legal action. I would be surprised if on the day Governor Abbott signs off on this, we don't see legal action come immediately after. But these sort of things take years. In fact, the maps that were drawn and approved in 2020 by the Texas legislature were in a lawsuit, and that's still pending in the court.
This is now, I think, my 4th video where we're gonna talk about the Texas issue. And it seems like even those boycotts and walkouts that Democrats lawmakers made, it seems that did not even impact anything, as the House eventually just passed the motion, and it seems like Texas redistrict mapping is gonna happen. As of now, what has just remained is the governor signing it off and it becomes the law. So many people are worried, like, this is definitely going to affect the midterm elections in a big way, because the 5 seats that are being added is going to favor GOP's weight unless the progressives find a way to cap that or to counterattack that, which is almost impossible right now. It seems like it's a counterattack that the progressives did not expect, and some of them say that this is a racial gerrymander that is going to violate or dismantle the voting rights of people. Just like the last speaker explained how people might run against each other, and also redistricting the maps right now is just like holding, when you hold your census after 10 years and then all of a sudden you say we want to hold a census in 5 years or in 3 years, it's definitely going to affect the pattern of the population or even things like election representations, and with which I'm sure this is going to attract legal battles Definitely, we expect legal battles after the signing off, because I know the GOP side is going to move so fast, or the MAGA side is gonna move so fast. Some people are celebrating this win and others are really heartbroken about it. Just the other day, we were talking about the lawmaker Nicole Collier, who had a slumber party because of this thing. It seems like efforts like hers did not even work.
I'm running on only a few hours of sleep, but let's talk about what happened last night in the Texas Senate. House Bill 4, which is a new proposed congressional map that gives Trump 5 additional seats in Congress, passed out of the House on Wednesday, quickly went over to the Senate, and they debated it all day yesterday. In the legislature, they had to take 2 votes. So they took the first one, and then before the second vote was supposed to happen is when Senator Carol Alvarado announced that she was going to filibuster. She gave her notice of intent to the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, and then soon after, he called a 3-hour dinner break. This was at 8:30 p.m. So he said, we're not planning to return until 11:30 p.m. And like having a dinner break is one thing. Typically they do this about 30 minutes or so. A 3-hour break was intentional. When they finally came back and actually gavelled in, it wasn't until after midnight. And at that point, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick immediately called all of the members up to the dais to begin talking to them. As a viewer, you couldn't see what was going on, but obviously he was explaining something to them. A few minutes later, what they did is bring a procedural motion to the floor in which they were citing that Carol Alvarado sent a fundraising email and that was potentially unlawful. They were able to get 5 Republican senators to second it or sign on to the motion and carry it forward. And then it passed, essentially blocking the filibuster from ever happening. And just a few minutes later, they immediately called the bill for a full vote, and it marked final passage. Now, it's obviously very, very clear that this was intentional, that the 3-hour break was intentional. They used that time to go hunting for a way to block this filibuster, which is wild because would it have stopped the bill anyways? No. It was definitely symbolic. It was a last push to make it hurt, to make it delayed, to keep the media talking about it, and they blocked it. All to just reach the finish line sooner and flex power where power doesn't need to be flexed. So yeah, now the bill goes to the governor's desk to be signed into law any day now. I'm sure he will make it a big deal. And yeah, that's where we're at. It's been a long month. A lot of us have been on the ground fighting every single day. Texans from across the state have traveled to Austin, traveled to different locations, done everything that they can to literally push back, to fight for their communities. And it wasn't all for nothing. I'll say that. It was not all for nothing, but the bill ultimately did pass. We knew that was the situation that was at hand, but it still hurts. But now we do what Texans do, and that's be resilient. We look ahead. We're gearing up for the 2026 midterms. We have one of the earliest primaries in the country, which will be in March. And so, we'll take the weekend to rest and then hit the ground running again, getting Texans registered to vote, getting people to volunteer to help other Texans get registered to vote, and then hopefully finding some badass candidates to get behind.
Hey y'all, my name is Mia Balderas, Interim Executive Director at Move Texas. I know that we've been in this redistricting fight together from day one. We have been watching the updates as they come in, and we now know that the maps have officially passed not only the House, but they just passed the Senate, meaning that the maps will now be heading to Governor Abbott's desk to be signed into law. This confirms the blatant power grab we have always known redistricting in Texas to be. It is officially helping Trump take over and steal 5 congressional seats. While the governor might be comfortable taking those actions, we know that the fight is not over. We know that the maps will most likely head to our courts to be challenged. But here over at Move Texas, we're already thinking about what comes next. And again, we're always focused on where true power lies. And we know that that's with our voters. And we know that we're also gearing up for National Voter Registration Day in September. They can try to confine us. They can place us in their boundaried lines. And at the end of the day, it is always left up to the voter. When all of us as voters show up in the 2026 election, starting with our primaries in March and then in the November elections, again, we are showing up to those polls to exercise our power to vote. And this right now, it could not be a more pressing time to ensure that, one, check your voter registration status. If you need to update, if you haven't registered, Please ensure that you are making that a priority. Register to vote. And if you honestly feel called, you like, I got it, I'm good, my voter registration status is double checked, I encourage all those who are eligible and able to become volunteer deputy registrars and help others in your community register to vote and show up to those polls. Thank you to the thousands who have rallied, testified, and shown up to the Capitol throughout this redistricting fight. We have never been in this alone, and we never will be. True power will always lie in community, and community will save us. So whether it's this fight or the next, I'm proud to be fighting with you, and Move Texas will always be here.
Wow, great insights there. So apparently, Texas has become a ground zero for redistricting arms race. This isn't just about maps. This is about who is gonna be heard, who is gonna be elected, and who is gonna be erased. This is going to attract a fierce legal battle. But it's not only just a legal battle, it's also going to attract fiercer political consequences. This is how we're gonna do our analysis, and we're gonna do it three ways. First is obviously this redistricting mapping thing in Texas is gonna affect the midterm elections in 2026, and it's gonna affect in three ways. First, for the conservative side or the GOP or Republicans, there is Democrats, and there's also for voters. Let us start for those people who are victors, the Republicans. How is it going to affect them? Apparently, the redistricting has added 5 districts that are gonna favor GOP. So that means that in the House, they're gonna have 25 to 30 representatives or lawmakers. This is going to make it hard for any of their motions that they present in the House to be overturned, or motions that are brought in by progressives are gonna be easily overturned. Secondly, for the progressives or Democrats, obviously incumbent lawmakers like Green, Sylvia Garcia, and Greg Caesar, who are supposed to run for a re-election, it's gonna be hard for them to be re-elected because now the districts that they are representing are now either split or merged. They are now being pushed to the conservative side, which is going to make it a hell of a mess for them to come back. And because of what is happening in Texas, the progressives are not gonna just let it slide. This is gonna attract retaliatory efforts in other states like, let's say, California, Illinois, New York, where they are also going to force a redistricting mapping, which is gonna force those GOP districts to be split or merged, just like the way they did in Texas, so that it can also favor the Democrats. And just to show that we can also do that, it's not only you who have the right or who can have the power to split in favor of you, but we can also do that. It's gonna be a game of cat and mouse. You do on that other side, we do on this other side, and let's see who has the bigger balls. That is what we talk about, the political fierce game or political consequences. Even though the Trump's team or the Trump's camp might feel like they're winning right now, but things like this can happen. Now for voters, what is gonna happen to voters? Of course, there's gonna be a huge chunk of confusion and also distrust, especially to the minorities who have been split and also others whose district or whose locations have been merged to the others. And now they're wondering, like, where are we voting from? Who are we voting for? And suppose that our votes, which were supposed to be progressive votes, are now split. What are we supposed to do? And that brings the issue of low voter turnout. When voters feel like their power to vote has been reduced significantly, then they feel the urge of not turning out to vote anymore because they feel like their vote won't count. Even though voting is a constitutional right, even though you come from an area where you feel like your vote won't count, just voting, that means you're exercising your constitutional right. But we are in the 21st century where someone feels like, why should I vote when my vote doesn't count? When the vote that I'm going to cast is like 1 to 200 votes. Why am I going to waste my time to vote for something that is not gonna change? Low voter turnout is not a good thing, but it's gonna be interesting how this is gonna turn out to be. Will Governor Abbott sign this thing into law? How will this whole redistricting mapping affect the 2026 midterm elections? Will there be any developments that are gonna come before the signing in or after signing in? Who's gonna push the legal battle? We're gonna follow up just like I promised. I'm sure this is not the last time that I'm gonna do a video of Texas and how the Democrats are fighting this redistrict mapping think this is one of those fierce battles that is going to be in history of Texas. But hey guys, you've listened to this point and you've heard my opinions and other people's opinions. It's at this point that I'm leaving this forum to you guys to share your opinions or thoughts. They will be really insightful in this matter. What you think, of course, is different than what I think and what others do think. So don't be shy to drop your comment down there below. Also, don't forget to go and check the original creators. Their usernames have been embedded in the Stitch videos as always. Go on to their TikToks, like, follow for this channel. Make sure you smash a huge thumbs up button. Consider subscribing, turn on post notifications so that you may not miss my next upload. And with that guys, let me meet you in the next one. Peace out.